Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Sim on a Whim, but you can call me Christina, and today we are going through a build that I recently put on the gallery. I named it Crest Ridge Cottage, and it is a build that I did solely with the Cottage Living and base game content. That's it. Now, on the gallery, when you go to download it, which my gallery ID is in the description, but it's also just Sim on a Whim. When you go to download it, it will say that there is content from 2 other packs than Cottage Living. This is a lie. I don't know where it's saying that this content is. If you find what this content is, and you want to let me know, please do let me know in the comments or by just commenting on the gallery listing with what it is. Regardless, if you download this lot and you have Cottage Living and obviously the base game, then you should be fine. There is nothing significant that will have any other content. You will have the full lot and its full capabilities. So, gallery being weird. All right, so let's get into this speed build. So for this speed build, I really wanted to play a lot with terrain and specifically terrain levels. I've always really liked the idea of putting a house, cottage, cabin, in this case it's a cottage, up on a hill and having everything else be lower or just having a really nice view over top. So I decided to explore that with this pack because there's so many great outdoor things that you can have with Cottage Living, mainly the coop and the barn. The first thing I realized with this build is that I was going to need staircases. I was hoping not. I was hoping to just do a stepping stone type thing, but I realized that because the elevation is so high, there was no way that any Sims were going to be able to get up there unless they had staircases. So that was kind of frustrating for me because the staircases that I thought looked good outside, which would have been the fully wooden ones like you see, were from special packs outside of Cottage Living. So you'll actually see later on that I replaced those stairs, and then the stairs I actually replaced them with are still from a different pack, so I had to go back in and remove those and replace them with a different set of stairs. But you'll see here that I wanted the barn on the lower level because obviously it's going to take up the most space and need the most space for the cows to graze. And then I wanted the coop on the second level so that the top level could just exclusively be the cottage. And I also wanted to lay out a bunch of farmland because, let's face it, if you're playing this pack, you're probably also farming, especially with some of the lot challenges, which you'll see if you download this pack. I actually have a few of the lot challenges on here. I believe there is Simple Living and Off the Grid. Simple Living and Off the Grid are the challenges on this lot. And then it has a few traits like Bracing Breezes, Eco-Friendly, and the one that's like Homely. I thought those all fit this. So up here, I'm doing the cottage. I kept it very, very simple. It's just a box with a few things to make it look more aesthetically pleasing and to use as much of the space as I could. And then I also wanted to put this balcony here. You'll see that I change a little bit later the pattern on the supports because that was actually one from a different pack too. But overall, I just wanted something that was a place where the Sims could sit or just look out over their farm and have a nice view, and it ended up turning out really nice. This is the part where I realized that all of these levels probably need fences to look reasonable because this is just way too much height for someone to not fall off of this basically is a cliff. So I ended up adding all the fences, even though I was worried that it was a little too busy, but honestly, I like it. It's realistic and it just adds to the very functional feel of this lot for me. So now you'll see that I am adjusting some of the terrain paint features here. I'm doing this balcony first, but I believe I go back over this and sync it with what the terrain paint is. I think that there's a very similar terrain paint to what I put down there. And I'm also just going over some of the grass areas and trying to make it look like it's a farm lot. So a lot of dirt, honestly. And especially down near the cow pasture area. I mean, it's going to be it's going to be not just dirt, if you know what I mean. So I wanted to kind of reflect that, but also make it a very interesting texture. So you'll see I used a few patterns here. I create a little path of stones the whole way up and then realized that my terrain painting is not as skilled as it could be. So I just supplemented it with some grass and fixed up some of the terrain paint on the cliff. And over here, I'm actually creating a pile of manure. I don't know if anybody will get that, but I hope that they do. And then I just wanted to put a little pond in here, mainly because we have now that nice new water feature, and I wanted to use that. So we don't have to use pools anymore. Yay! Here, I forgot to escape the cheese menu, so we're gonna have to deal with that pop up in the corner there. The frustrating thing about this part is that all of the grass that I used for this was actually from Island Living. So I did have to go back and replace it with different grass, and that's just, it was frustrating. But that's what taught me to make sure I filter before I am building stuff when I'm using specific packs. Here I'm just playing with the outside of the two barn and coop areas, and I really wanted to get this outside done in landscape before I did the inside. I really tend to get kind of overwhelmed with landscaping just because it's so much area and I guess worried that I won't be able to landscape it properly. It always ends up turning out fine, but I do like to do it before the house so that I don't just give up when I'm done with the house. This part, I really loved this pattern, and unfortunately it was something else I had to remove because it's actually from Get Together. And that's really frustrating because it was really nice. It was a really nice cottagey pattern here, but it's okay. The one I replaced it with is an actual siding. I believe it's a masonry siding from the Cottage Living pack, so I was happy with it in the end. And here I'm just doing the roof thatching. I wanted it to be very cottage-like, so I ended up going with the double thatch and using some of the windows here from the new pack. I love the windows that they added. There's so many choices and they're all so adorable. You'll see that I kind of moved it out a little bit and then I was like, nope, need a door. Here, I really love using columns as accents, and I know this is kind of like, I know that columns kind of do weird things in the main play mode, but they just look so good that I tend to use them. And if people want to delete them, then they can, and it's not going to affect the house. So here I'm kind of playing with where I want everything to be. I'm not used to building things in such a tiny space. I used to trend towards doing mansions. So I really had to figure out how to optimize this space. And I decided that the best way to do that in this case was to put the kitchen in that nook, especially since the bed can be used as a seating area and things like that. And I just chose to keep everything in the same room because it's cottage and just have a separate room for the bathroom for obvious reasons. And it turned out being really simplistic, and I loved how it landed. So originally I placed, you'll see here, a table with two chairs, but you'll see a little bit later on that I actually move it because I thought that having a fireplace would be nice. So that actually gets moved a little bit later. And I'm just adjusting the columns here to make it a little bit more interesting than just the cottage wall uh, paneling that I had chosen. So here I will do that often where I realize that I found an object that I want to use somewhere else in the build, but I am concentrated on the task at hand, in this case, building the interior. And I think that that's a really great tip for anyone who is going through and kind of overwhelmed by all of the volume of materials that they have in the build mode and often see things that they'd like to use. Just put it in a place where you'll see it later and go back to it if you're very focused like I am on the task at hand. So here I really wanted to incorporate this little mushroom poof. It's so adorable, and I tried putting it outside at one point and it's a poof, so it didn't make sense. So I ended up putting it there, and it's actually really good. My sim uses it all the time in my Let's Play. So doing the back windows here and shifting to the bathroom, I really wanted to make sure all the appliances in this build were off the grid, and I realized afterwards that the sink is actually not off the grid, so it's really easy to just go in there when you're playing this lot and just replace the sink with an off-the-grid sink, but they can also use the kitchen sink, so. Here I just wanted to add some color to the outside beyond the, brown and tan wood theme and put some flower boxes. So I didn't like how they were placing with these windows, so I just used move objects to place them how I wanted. Sometimes they wouldn't go how I wanted them to, and it was very frustrating. See this, it kept snapping and it was just frustrating me a lot, so I ended up just moving the window itself. But here I'm doing some of the ground landscaping up near the cabin, mainly because I couldn't do it earlier because I didn't know how the cabin was going to be laid out. Or I keep calling it a cabin, it's more of a cottage. I don't know. And then I'm just touching up some of the other terrain paint, and I realized that this whole hill looks a little bit too man-made, so I just went over it and did some touch-ups. I wanted to make sure the house wasn't literally hanging off the edge here, and just made parts of it more rocky, I guess, just to try and make it look more natural. I also had a sim testing every so often the parts of this build, specifically around move objects, but really just the levels themselves, to make sure that this is an actual usable lot, because I didn't want everybody's sims to be throwing their hands up all the time all over this. I wanted this to be functional. So I did test everything in here, and everything should function as intended except for that sink that I told you about. I mean, the sink will work. It just won't work off the grid, and this lot is cataloged as an off the grid lot. So if you want to remove that, then you can, or you can just replace the sink. Here I really like to place, especially with landscaping, I like to place plants in bulk and then remove as necessary rather than just being very meticulous about what I place and not removing anything. I find that it's easier for me that way to visualize how it's going to look. And here I just delete everything I just did with all of the plants because I realized that I'm not going to have enough plants that I like to place to make it look good. So I'm just placing a few trees here that really helped fill out the cliff area, which I was really disappointed in by the time that I was doing the plants in the landscape. I was like, this is so empty. So the trees really filled it up. Putting some cabinets up here. I don't know if this was just a glitch in my game or what, but the cabinets were not connecting. So I ended up just doing one and putting some shelves nearby. But I also wanted to put some other things on the wall that were very functional for a farm cottage. And I wanted to clutter up the surfaces a little bit because on a working farm, there probably would be a lot of clutter. I love that rug, and I'm so glad that I got to use it for this build. Just using those adorable jars and the teapot, wanted to add some of these wall accents on the outside because I love the new vines. And just checking how it would look and adding some of the new furniture items. I took a while for me to decide where that laundry basket would go. And then here you see me moving the table. I take out the counter there because I really wanted to put a fireplace in this cottage. I love that chicken as well. I know that a lot of people love that chicken, so I was like, I need to put it in here. So I'm just looking for extra details that I can add to make it even more homey. I add that little cart down there. And then I'm thinking maybe I might need a dresser, but I actually end up deciding against that and adding a plant instead in the bathroom. There just wasn't enough room. Here I'm adding the cross-stitching kit and a slow cooker, and then I created the seating area for outside. That is my full build, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and like I said at the beginning of the video, if you would like to download this lot, which just uses content from the base game and the Cottage Living expansion pack, you can do that for free on the Sims gallery. My username is simonawhim. If you're unsure of how to spell that, that is my channel name. It's also below in the description. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I post content at least once a week, oftentimes more, and also activate the notification bell if you'd like to be updated when I add new videos. I also have a Twitter. It is the same as my channel name, Sim on a Whim, and I will also post updates and new videos there as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.